All right, this meeting of the Board of Education for September 30th, 2025 is called to order. This meeting is being streamed live on PPS TV Services website. Yay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our annual Head Start training. As board members, we have the unique and important responsibility for the governance and oversight of our Head Start program. Tonight's training is a chance for us to strengthen our understanding of the program, review our roles and responsibilities, and ensure that we're fulfilling both federal requirements and our commitment to the children and families we serve. Head Start is more than a program. It is an opportunity to provide comprehensive support for our youngest learners and their families. Dr. Armstrong, would you like to, or do you have anything?
Absolutely. First, I just want to recognize the team and look at them in their wonderful early learner t-shirts.
I failed.
I appreciate it. I also want to thank the team for the preparation, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Emily Glasgow to introduce the team and launch into the training. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm going to slightly rebrand and say this is your Early Learners and Head Start annual board training, and we'll explain more why that's important. And you can even see Dana's corrected her name tag here. We've shifted our program a bit over the last several years, and it's important context, I think, for you as the board to understand. So we'll get into that. Before we do, though, Dana, why don't we go to the next slide? We'll do quick introductions. Again, I'm Emily Glasgow. I'm the Senior Director for Pre-K 5 Academics, which means I oversee our Early Learners Program, K-5 Core Academics, K-12 Intervention, High Impact Tutoring, Summer, and K-12 Tag. So you'll hear from me about a lot of things, but I particularly love talking about early learners. This is always a really fun moment in the year. I'm going to let Dana and a couple of our team members quickly introduce themselves, and then we'll dive in.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Dana Stiles. I am the Director of Early Learners, formerly the Director of just Head Start, but as Emily said, we've done some programmatic shifts in the last couple of years. And then a few of my team members have joined tonight just because they're awesome and want to be here. So I will let them introduce themselves and their titles. Yeah, you want to go first?
Hi, everyone. My name is Terry Marchok, and I have the honor of serving the communities of Sacagawea, JCE, and Marysville pre-K classrooms.
I'm Rhiannon Martin, and I serve our entire program. I work on all of our enrollment and data.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amparo Garcia-Yurchenko, and I serve the community of Clarendon, to classroom at Seton, to classroom at Boise Elliott, and to classroom at Rosa Parks. 13 classrooms, and the Spanish DLI pre-K.
So this is just a small representation of a very large team, and we'll get into some more details about that as we go through the presentation. Just to give an overview of what we're going to talk about in the next hour, we're going to first give an overview sort of our Early Learners Program, of our pre-K program, so that you understand where we are today in terms of the landscape, and then where Head Start is situated within that. And then we'll move into the required annual Head Start board training and the components of that. And it will all fit through the hour. I think we're good with questions as we go, as long as there aren't, too many all at once. We might have to keep going and reserve them till the end, but we can start with questions as we go. So again, just quick framing, and Chair Wong sort of started this way. Because we have a Head Start program situated within a school district, which is not always the case with Head Start programs, you as the school board play a really important role. You are actually the board that oversees our Head Start program within PPS. So federal standards, Head Start standards, require oversight for compliance with federal laws and regulations, and that means that there are a lot of approvals you have to do over the course of the year, and we'll talk about how those are going to come to you and what you can expect. And then we also just want to give a special shout out to Director Sullivan. She has acted as our Early Learners Board liaison for almost a year now, which just means she's someone who we can touch base with more frequently if we need a board conversation with someone. It used to be Director DePass, so we've passed the torch.
It's a fun one.
It's a good one.
Yeah, you're all welcome to visit, though. You don't have to be a liaison to visit. Yeah. We're going to start with an overview of the program. This is just a little bit about scope, and I think this is actually just an unfortunately well-kept secret within PPS. So the more we can talk about it, the better. The more that you talk about it when you're out and about, the better. We have the capacity just in PPS alone to serve 910 3 through 5-year-olds in our pre-K programs. What that looks like scope-wise is that we have 51 pre-K classrooms at 14 different sites. Some of those are standalone early childhood sites, and some of those are classrooms embedded within elementary schools. 7 of those are dual language pre-K classrooms. 3 of them are culturally specific classrooms. Every classroom has 1 licensed PAT teacher and 1.5 classified PFSP EAs, educational assistants in the classroom. And when you kind of broaden that out and also include all of the other folks that support the program, we have about 250 total staff who support our early childhood program, our early learners program within PPS. You can see a little bit more about the program there. These are all free full day classrooms. If you're interested, you can go to our website to learn more. And then an important note that we like to call out is just over the last several years, in addition to the classrooms that we ourselves supervise and run and staff, we've worked really hard over the last, decade or so to also build partnerships with community providers. As in particular, Preschool for All has expanded and created more opportunities for small businesses and culturally specific agencies to open up pre-K classrooms. What's often true is that they have the capacity to open classrooms, but not the facilities. And so we have been working to offer facilities where and when we can to providers who either offer something we can't or don't, or who would do it better than us. So we have over a dozen, you can see, of classroom spaces that we as a system kind of free lease to partners in the community.
I have a quick question. So we have the capacity to serve 910 students, and is that how many we're serving, or is there
To
still?
show you, we're going to give you a live enrollment
You've already
update a
answered
little
my
later.
first 3 questions without.
Great.
So
There's so much more to come. So we'll get to enrollment and we'll give you a live update on that a few slides from now. So that's just kind of scope. I'm going to pause here for a second to explain how we got to here. So when I used to hold Dana's job, which again was a little bit different job. I'm the director of early learners in 2019. And when I came into the job, I was charged with trying to figure out how to expand horizontal alignment across all of our pre-K programs, because at that time things were sort of siloed and separate. There was Head Start, there was Preschool Promise, and there were some classrooms that were just classrooms that we had just kind of stood up with Title I funding, and they were all kind of doing their own thing. And then I was also charged with vertical alignment, because at that time also I would say our pre-K programs were ran pretty separately from the rest of the system, and there wasn't a lot of alignment in terms of curriculum and programming and all those things. And so what we've done over the last 6 or 7 years, and under Dana's leadership for the last couple of years, out of a desire to have more coherence and more alignment, and also out of financial necessity, we've kind of broken down the walls and completely braided funding and reorganized our program so that we have one coherent program team, which you can see here on this chart, that supports all 51 of our pre-K classrooms, regardless of which funding streams come in on the back end to support and build those classrooms. And that's allowed us, again, to actually cut several $1 million out of the budget, which has been a necessity over the last couple of years, but also get really more streamlined and intentional with how we do wraparound supports for our pre-K programs, because an important element pre-K is that these are not just classrooms. We also, in alignment with our grant requirements, offer wraparound supports to families. And so what you see here is that we have a program operations team, because we're talking about tens of $millions of grant funding and a lot of operations that need a lot of support. We have a health, wellness, and inclusion team. So we offer mental health and wellness and inclusion and health and nutrition. We have our education team, a team of administrators and coaches that support the classroom programs. And then we have a large family and community partnership team that supports enrollment and family and community engagement and family and community education, family services, partnerships with community, all those things. So this is the program team. And then if you go to the next slide,
Emily?
how we've reorganized ourselves. Yeah.
If they weren't braided, would Preschool Promise and Preschool for All also offer all those things?
Not necessarily, and we'll show you in a little bit there, all of our grants offer different funding levels and have different requirements. Head Start has the highest funding level and also the kind of highest bar for wraparound supports and expectations around that. What we've really tried to do though is take the highest bar in terms of service to families and use our creative braiding of funding and programming to make sure that all families in PPS pre-K, whichever slot their child sits in, gets that same level of support. But yes, just isolated, they would not necessarily look the same. That's where braiding really is kind of the gold standard approach across the country for how to make sure you're stretching your resources in creative ways. The other shift we made this shift last year when we reorganized our program team, was to organize ourselves into what we call pods. So we have 4 pods. You heard, I think, Amparo and Terry talk about the schools and the pods that they support. You can see where they are on the map. And you can see which sites are in each pod. And then every pod has an early learner administrator assigned to them who oversees and supervises the educators. And each pod team, as you can see, also has an admin assistant, an instructional coach, mental health consultants, family advocates, and floating educational assistants. Again, this has allowed us to sort of be more creative and resourceful with what we have and really let people focus in these sort of things. If you're wondering why we don't currently have any programming on the west side, when you look at this map, we do have a partnership with Neighborhood House Head Start, and right now they are the provider on the west side, and we give them some space, and they also have some of their own space. It doesn't mean we could never do more, but that's the arrangement right now. Okay, is that where I pass? No, I do one more. I'm gonna do one more, I'm gonna pass to Dana. So this gets a little bit into Director Sullivan's question, and this is what gets really complicated to explain and understand. But again, we are now a fully braided program. We receive grant funds from the Federal Office of Head Start, from the Oregon State Head Start, which is called Oregon Pre-K or OPK, from Preschool Promise, which is a state agency and state funding, and from Preschool for All, which is Multnomah County funding. You can see on this slide that each of these funding streams has slightly different eligibility requirements. It's largely, you can see, organized around income, but there are lots of other priority populations outlined in each grant, and many of them overlap across all 3 grants. And so again, what we've tried to do, and you'll see on the enrollment slide a little bit later how many slots from each of these providers we have. We've braided them across all of our classrooms and sites because that creates then more flexibility for us to enroll families at different means and from different priority populations at all of our sites. Dana's going to go into more detail. Any questions before I pass to Dana on what we've said so far? Yeah.
I have a basic question. So the 910, is that just Head Start or is that all 3?
All of these.
Okay.
And we'll show you a breakdown in just a
Okay.
So here's a little bit more about our pre-K program by the numbers, like getting into specifically the students that we serve and the composition of the kiddos, and just giving a little bit more data to the wraparound services and some of the instructional components we have in the program. So of our 910 students, and this data is pulled from last year, but 210 students were students with special needs, so about 25%. I can confirm we are tracking very closely to that this year and probably a little bit higher. 37% of our students were multilingual learners last year, and that's been pretty consistent, around 40% over the last few years. 13 students were in foster care, and about 13% were experiencing homelessness. We've seen that number upticking, and we continue to work with our McKinney-DeVento team and really focus to reach as many of our families that might be experiencing houselessness as possible.
Can you tell me what a McKinney-DeVento team is?
Oh, sure. McKinney-Vento is the federal program that supports students experiencing houselessness, and we work with them to transport kids to school so that they still can have access to education, even if they're housing insecure.
Great, thank you so much.
Next one, sorry,
Mhm.
question about this. Is 210 special needs, is there any overlap? So might some of the special needs be experiencing homelessness in houses? So that this number 25 plus 37 plus 13.
It does not equal 100. It would have been 210 of our, whatever our final enrollment number was of last year, 800 and something. So
some kids who are experiencing multiple of
Yeah,
those.
definitely, absolutely. So the numbers aren't meant to tally 100, but of the total population. And then I wanted to just give a little bit of color to how many screenings and wraparound supports we provide to families. So we have a family advocate at every single site that we serve. The family advocate's role is to support families with wraparound services getting access to the support that they need at home or at school. And last year we completed, and then they also work really closely with our health team to provide particularly health wraparound services. So last year we completed 870 vision screenings, 637 hearing screenings, 844 dental screenings, and we saw dental treatment for our students increase by 15% last year, which is pretty significant, especially if we think about that intersection of health with many other social determinants. And then we also were able to provide through referrals through our family advocate team, 86,000 in utility assistance. And then we also hosted 6 OMSI Play Labs, 5 mobile play labs, and we're able to provide 46 free memberships to families. That's just a little spotlight. It's not all the work that we did, but just some of the data I wanted to highlight.
May I ask a couple questions
yeah.
about this section?
Sure.
So there's utility assistance, or is there any way to connect participants to housing assistance or rental assistance?
Yeah, we are able to do that. We make those referrals too. And so we work really closely with those assistance teams, and then the family advocate will work with the family to get them into housing, stable housing. And then we will, Rhiannon specifically and team will work with the family to figure out, like, is this still the right placement for you? Do we need to transfer you based on where you're placed in terms of housing? So we have a pretty robust process around that to provide housing assistance too. And we do track families that start in homelessness, like maybe are experiencing homelessness to start and then get housing. I just didn't pull that data from this slide.
Okay, no worries. Thank you. And then the other question was about vision screenings. I attended something at Sit in School a couple of years ago called Vision to Learn, and it's a mobile screening.
No, but yeah.
Anyway, they, I think something like 35% of the school's kids ended up with glasses, and they could pick whatever kind of like sparkly pink, bright green.
Yeah.
And so, and Governor Brown was there. That was a really big thing. It's like an Oregon company that's doing vision screenings for low-income kids. So I didn't know.
We
The
work with
screening is good. I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
like, what's the next step for these?
so we work with Elks, which is a partner that, so we work with Elks. And so we complete the vision screening, and then again, the family advocate team will make a referral, and we have ROIs on file so we can help families get the appointments to do the follow-up.
Okay.
And then we track all of that follow-up to see how many students get glasses as a result of that. And then we have timeframes on like expectations for completion. So, yeah.
There was legislation last session that named that program.
Vision to Learn.
Yeah, it made it to Ways and Means, but didn't pass because of lack of funding,
Oh.
But yeah, it was a
Cute program.
I think they did expand to middle school though, because Tubman at least has it this year.
Oh,
I was just wondering, I see that you had 311 multilingual learners. Do you guys do, this is an honest question, I know like lots of elementary schools do immersion programs. Do you guys do any immersion programs?
Yeah, so we have 7 classrooms that are designated as dual language immersion. In those classrooms, we do a 90-10 model, so it's 90% in the target language and 10% in English. And we have 6 of the 7 are Spanish, and then 1 is Vietnamese, which we opened last year. Yeah, and then just moving down to the last sort of component, which is really focused on instruction. We did a curricular adoption for the Haggerty curriculum, which again is speaking to Emily's, like what Emily was speaking to around vertical alignment. And we sort of did year 0 last year, we were calling it, but we had 89% implementation with integrity. And then we're going to continue that phonological awareness work this year and digging in even further. And then we also had an initiative last year in partnership with the Children's Literacy Initiative to host family literacy events. And we had 159 families attend a literacy event last year. And those events are going to continue this year with the expectation that they're being offered multiple times at all of our sites across the year. That's just a snapshot of some of the data. I'm happy to provide any additional data or speak to any of the other areas. But for the sake of time, we'll kind of continue us on here. Oh, computer has stopped working altogether.
of course.
I don't know. Where are we? Hold on, you guys. I get back to the presentation.
She's about to show the much anticipated enrollment. It's coming.
Oh gosh, I can't see anything. Hold on. Where did it go? Here it is. Okay, we're back. Okay, sorry guys. Zoom is not my friend today. Okay, So and our slots are ultimately funded by enrollment, right? So we get money per student that we support. And so each student every student is how we kind of get dollars, and we are working to be fully enrolled, right? This is something that the whole district is working on. And we made some really critical changes in the last couple of years to be very intentional about enrollment and to meet some of our corrective action plans. And we're seeing some really great gains from those shifts that we've made. So our current enrollment, fresh off the press from Friday, I think, right? Yeah, from Friday, is we are currently 93% enrolled in our preschool classrooms. So that means we have 842 students of the 910 enrolled. And then you can also see what that looks like in terms of the total slots and then the percent enrolled per funding source. So for Head Start specifically, we're 91% enrolled, for Preschool for All, 96% enrolled, and Preschool Promise, 99% enrolled. And then I also wanted to give a little bit of information in regards to what does that rate of change look like from last school year, just to see the efficacy of the shifts that we've made around enrollment. So overall, we're seeing a 21% increase at this point in time of the year compared to where we were last year with enrollment.
Which is outstanding.
You're allowed to clap.
If you were asking. So some of the key shifts that we made this year, we launched it last year, but like getting people to kind of get into summer work is really work that starts in January. So this was the first full year that we had a year-round program-wide enrollment team. So Rhiannon leads a team of 3 people, and their job is to recruit and enroll kids. And so they've worked diligently all summer. It always starts a little slow, and then it gets really intense, and then it sort of pumps back down. So that shift has been really instrumental because we have people all year working to enroll families and being present and available to families through the summer. We also make continual adjustments on the composition and the locations of our specific slot funding. So we're using our community needs data, we're looking at our income data, we're looking at heat maps of the city, for example, and we're thinking like, at a given site, do we have the right composition of seats here to meet the needs of the families that we're seeing apply? So an example of that would be at a given classroom at Jason Lee, for example, we want to say, well, we're seeing about 50% of the families would be eligible for Head Start and the other 50% would not be, but they certainly would qualify for Preschool for All. So then we'll say in a classroom of 18 kids, 9 seats will be for Head Start and 9 seats will be for Preschool for All. And then the goal with all of those seats will be filled, right? And then that means that we're not leaving families without access, and we're also making sure families are getting into the right funding source in which they're eligible for.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So based on the grading, the different types of programs, does that basically mean that kids who have a Preschool Promise or Preschool for All slot are accessing the same level of service that Head Start kids are, as far as like all of kind of the extras that come with Head Start?
Yes, and so we've designed that to hold the most rigorous standard is sort of what we've universalized in the program. We do have very specific deadlines with Head Start, so we start with the Head Start kiddos, so we're meeting those performance standard deadlines, and then over the course of the year, we'll fill that out and make sure we get to all students over the course of the year. So the dental screenings is a good example. There's 45-day and 90-day, or vision screening, et cetera. There's 45-day and 90-day deadlines. We'll start with the kids that are required to meet that deadline, and then we'll use the rest of the year to support the other kiddos and families. And that, I think, has really come out of us trying to be very intentional about and really listening to parent feedback, which is no parent, we don't want to be presenting to families like this isn't something for you. We want to say like this is for you and you have access to these things. And it is a selling point that we can offer to families, and if we're thinking about a competitive marketplace. So it is an asset in that regard too.
One note on that on enrollment too is we've worked really hard for there to be sort of one door to PPS pre-K, so that families don't have to be thinking about what do I qualify for, what kind of slot, what kind of program. They just apply to PPS pre-K, and then on the back end we kind of do the work of guiding them to the right slots and the right sites, and then making sure they get what they need. So I would be surprised if a lot of families even know necessarily like what kind of slot they're sitting in. Children definitely wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
awesome.
So.
And then the last piece of that is along those same lines is we have really made intentional recruitment and partnership efforts to be ready to receive families versus asking families to seek us out, right? So the more we're present in the community, the more that we're seeking out partnerships, we're putting our name out there, we're creating one application. We're trying to really take that like legwork off of families and just say, here, apply, and we'll help you on the back end sort of figure that out. I fielded a lot of phone calls. Rhiannon fielded hundreds of phone calls this summer. It's confusing for families, and getting into school shouldn't be hard, right? It's you're welcome here. We want you here. How do we make this work for you? Is sort of our recruitment mindset.
Can I ask, where does the parent policy council fit in for Head Start?
Yeah, so our parent policy council is still the same. We did adjust our bylaws last year to make sure that we were still maintaining the Head Start performance requirement or Head Start performance requirements. And we also added in co-chairs. So we do have have requirements in our standards that say a percentage of the families need to be Head Start eligible, but we've added co-chairs, and so that way we can have all families in our program participate. And we thought it was.
I should say, for those of you less familiar with that language, Dana's going to show you a visual later about where Parent Policy Council sits in the government. Yeah.
And to that end, we thought we might run into more issues last year. Like I was sort of expecting us to be like very imbalanced, and we weren't, which was like a really pleasant surprise. I think we were like, oh, we'll see how this goes. And then it went really well. And then also families having co-chairs was great because if they missed a meeting, the meetings just sort of like flowed much more easily. There was another question.
I was going to ask a question. Yeah. And you might get to it, but I'm just curious if there's like particular classrooms or facilities that are more under enrolled or if it's just sort of spread out pretty evenly.
We weren't going to focus necessarily on where we are under enrolled, but we do have certain sites that we've been targeting. It's not necessarily universalized in terms of, oh gosh, what's going on? Can't get back. There we go. It's not necessarily universalized in terms of like a specific pod. It might be a specific site. We have a couple of, we have like one site in Southeast where we are still doing recruitment efforts to increase enrollment. And then up in North Portland, there's also just quite a bit of, like all the sites are very close together. So we're still working to get fully enrolled up there, but every site is at 80%. Yep. Yes, so everyone's at 80%. So we're not seeing like one site at 50 and one at 100. So every site is at a baseline of 80%.
I have another question. Yeah. So if a family goes through Preschool for All and their admission process, if they're in PPS, would that kind of get sent to your team and then you do the figuring as to where they fit into the puzzle?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff on the Preschool for All website that's like, if you're interested in PPS, click here, right? Like click here because we have a separate enrollment because we are a school district, and it just, to make things functional for us, we need that. We also really take intentional efforts around classroom placement to balance classrooms. So be thoughtful about gender, students with special needs, to really create balance, and that work has to be done internally. So we work with the Preschool for All team to, have all of that sort of documented on the website to direct families. And then if they get families that are interested in our classrooms, they get referred over through Rhiannon and her team, and then we'll kind of take over the enrollment. Vice versa, if a family comes to us and is like, this isn't going to work for us for whatever reason, or they want, whatever reason it's not going to work, then we can do that cross referral. So we're still working through that. Like, I think it's an evolving thing as we're all sort of refining and revising our enrollment processes, but it is a partnership that we do have.
Thank you.
Keep going.
Yeah, let's keep going. Okay. So our program priorities for this year, I just wanted to highlight. We've sort of anchored in 2 priorities for this school year. The first priority in yellow is around language and literacy, with the focus on intentional language and literacy instruction to improve our educational outcomes for our priority populations. This is in strong coherence with the literacy focus and the district continuous improvement plan. And also statewide initiatives around early literacy and really anchoring us in foundational literacy practices. And then also really focused on engaging our families in meaningful literacy engagements for home to support particularly multilingualism. Our second priority is around safe and supportive environments. Ultimately, we know that students feeling safe, supported, a strong sense of belonging at school will encourage them to keep coming to school. And within that, we're really focused on attendance and engagement in the classroom this particular year. This again is in alignment with the district continuous improvement goal areas of attendance, and also based on the data that we were seeing last year as a need. We did notice last year that about 64% of our students would have been considered chronically absent based on Oregon state standards. So we know that that is something that we really need to dig into this year. And we have a bunch of new processes in place to follow up with families and to dig into the data a little bit more. We're gonna have an attendance leadership team alongside our instructional leadership team and our pyramid model leadership team. So we have lots of things kind of going on, but those are our two priorities for this year, and really trying to, again, thread that needle in connection to the broader district priorities.
That's 10 absences across the year?
It's this, the Oregon standard says that it's 10% of the total enrolled days.
For like little kids, it's harder to achieve than older kids because of illness, right?
Yeah, that's the number one reason kids are usually so sick.
It's like my kids were like absent all the time.
They're sick a lot.
But also, if parents get used to coming when they're
Yes.
little.
Exactly. So yes, building strong habits early.
I got sick one time,
Yeah.
and it was chicken pox. I mean, I know.
Happy for your kids. My
They
kids
just
were
fight.
fine.
So just purple shoulder.
Okay, so we're going to move us into part 2 of this presentation, which is, if you think about the umbrella of early learners, we're going to dive deep into Head Start and just go into some of the required board training components, specifically for the Office of Head Start. And so when we think about the Office of Head Start, you all play a role as the governing body, right? Head Start doesn't have to exist in the school system. Often they exist in communities where there's a governing board and then there's a parent policy board. And together those folks provide the oversight to the program. So when we talk about Head Start, we're talking about a school readiness program. And when we think about school readiness, we are thinking about children are ready for school, families are ready to support their children in school, and schools are ready for the children. So that's a really important component for us. And then when we look at the Head Start kind of overall structure, we have this, it's called a management systems wheel, but on the dark blue outside, you'll see there's leadership and governance, which sort of wraps around all the components of the program. And then there's 12 areas within the program in the aqua circle that we are required to support. And so here you'll see things like our wraparound services, data evaluation, fiscal management. I'm just sort of like naming all the things that are in here, and then some of the services that are also provided by the district. So we don't have a separate HR team, for example. We use the PPS HR team, right? We don't have separate transportation. We use PPS transportation. All of our management systems sort of are embedded in PPS. So as the governing board, there's some things you explicitly do for us as a program, and then also things that are just within your purview as a board to the school district because we use those services as well. In terms of leadership and governance, there's 3 bodies that are the overlapping Venn diagram to provide program leadership and strategic direction. So the bottom right circle is our management team. That's the team I lead. That's the team that my folks are on. And that's our early learners department team, particularly our early learners management team. So that includes our administrators, our program managers, and then a few other folks that support our broader program leadership. We run the day-to-day operations. We make recommendations of where we want to go strategically with the program. We are working really closely with all those PPS departments. And so that's sort of our responsibility. In terms of the parent side of the house, it is required that parents have a voice in all of our programmatic decisions. So we have a parent policy council, which has their own leadership team. We meet with them monthly. The meetings are 2 hours a month, so it's a big commitment for families. And then we do recruitment to get families from across all of our sites, so we have representation. And we bring our leadership decisions or our best thinking or policies we want to amend, and we bring them to policy council, and we get parent feedback on them, we get parent input on them, and then the parents vote and approve everything that we put forth. From there, then we engage with you all as our school board and as our governing body. So you all will receive, for example, like this is at the recommendation of the Parent Policy Council to approve, because we've gone through those 2 cycles in advance of things kind of coming to you all. And then as the school board, there's some key components for governance that you are critically important for. The first one is fiduciary responsibility. So you all are the fiduciary leaders across the school district, and the same thing applies to Head Start. You are also work with us around legal oversight. So we have legal services, but you all are also supporting us in that. And then the school board is also intended to provide safeguarding and balance to both the parent policy committee and the program leadership team. So it really is meant to be sort of these distinct roles that are creating some checks and balances within the program. I'm not going to read everything on there, but you guys can kind of see all of the components. Questions there? Okay. So governance roles and responsibilities, just another view of it. As I said, my team sort of manages the day-to-day operations, informs the decision-making that we're going to bring forth to Policy Council and to you all as the board. The Parent Policy Council is established yearly, and they'll offer feedback and advocacy. And then ultimately, we will bring any sort of policies, procedures, strategic direction to you all to provide that fiscal and legal accountability and oversight to us. And ultimately, compliance and effectiveness is in tandem with you all as the board. We are required to do continuous improvement for Head Start. This is actually a requirement. And we work in 5-year cycles. So we have a 5-year grant cycle. You have to reapply for funding every year, but the cycle of the grant is 5 years long. So we are in year 3 this year. So we apply for the grant, we start the 5-year cycle. And then within that 5-year cycle, we have goals, and we do continuous improvement around those goals every year. I'm not going to go into all of the components of the continuous improvement cycle, but this does very much align to sort of other district practices that we have. And my job and our job as a leadership team is to report out kind of how we're making progress on those things. So you all will see things like a community assessment or a needs assessment or a self-assessment, which will be coming soon. And those assessments are our own progress monitoring towards our goals that we will report out to you all. Additionally, in the continuous improvement process, we also look at our fiscal components, and so we have to retool our finances every year to make sure that we're creating that we're making the changes we need to be sustainable. And so that's also a component of board engagement as well around budgeting and those sorts of things. So in terms of modes of communication, there's 3 sort of main modes that we communicate with the board. The first mode of communication is through our automated Head Start enterprise system. This is where automated program updates or findings from the Office of Head Start will come through. Sorry, Chair Wong, you're the person that's probably getting all these emails from them. But those automated, you're good. I was like, oh, he's on another one. But those automated updates will come through. Chair Wong will receive them. I can't change who has access. It just is what it is. And then Emily as our executive director, and then myself, and then any other pertinent folks on my team will receive the automated updates. If it's of something of relevance, I work with Emily to make sure you all are informed and any other key stakeholders. The more consistent way of communication will be essentially our quarterly board packets that you all typically put on the consent agenda, where I'll send forth like a whole bunch of things to approve, information to read, those reports that we're sort of offering out. And in those, that will include our director's update, policy council minutes, enrollment and demographic updates, financial updates, etc. And then the last one is our supplemental communication. So we will communicate additionally any health and safety incident reports, upcoming audit information, board requests, etc. And that's also a really key role that Director Sullivan plays for us around that supplemental communication. So we have a touch point with the board.
Just to reiterate, so all of this information will flow to the board office.
Yes.
And so you'll definitely receive those updates, and there'll be opportunities for further engagement too as we go. But it follows our protocol of the way the information flows too.
And so just an FYI of what's kind of coming down the pipeline, preview to future communications. We will have a program review this year. The Office of Head Start requires reviews in year 2 to 4. And so we are in year 3 of our Head Start grant. So we will be having a federal review at some point this year. We don't know when. The review will include both some virtual and in-person components, and it will look at the strengths and needs of the program, our staffing structure, approaches to all of our different domains of the program, our fiscal infrastructure, governance policies, and all of our ERC practices, which includes eligibility, recruitment, selection, etc. Board member participation is required, so a couple of you will be supporting us through some of the interview components, so get ready.
I was just looking
Get
at that.
ready.
A couple of you have done this before. It's okay. It's painless, right?
Yeah, it's not, it wasn't.
Ready?
You were already. You did a great job.
Yeah. So when we know more, we will share more. We just know it's coming at some point this year. We've been notified. So that's something that's coming down the line. And then the last thing is also our future engagement. So we will continue to share out about program reportings, any policies and procedures, and then long-term really around program sustainability. So as we know, right, money is tight. So how we're navigating that as a program too, we will continue to communicate with you all, and particularly how that intersects with our enrollment trends will be something to continue to communicate about.
We strongly encourage you to come visit us. Talk with Roseanne if you're interested. And I like to think of it as the happiest place in PPS. When you need a pick-me-up, come see.
Yeah,
Is,
true. I would say that's true.
is Head Start happy with the way we braid?
They're happy as long as they can follow the money, is my answer.
Meaning that they can like trace a direct line from the funding that they expect to go to the families and students enrolled in Head Start to those students, and they can. So it's more about the reporting part.
Yeah, so as long as the money is sort of, it's following all the allowabilities and it is directly tied to the individual student, which all of it is. And ultimately also we have checks and balances within our system. So those are sort of the key components. A check and balance example would be, I build the budget alongside my business operations analyst. We submit the budget, we prepare the budget, but ultimately we're not the ones also doing the drawdown, right? We have a grant accountant from the fiscal team that does our drawdowns. And so that's an example of checks and balances that I'm looking for.
They're also, I think, as you know, Dr. Sullivan, holding a very high bar, as they should right now, in terms of enrollment. And I do think the liaisons that we work with in the Office of Head Start are very clear that the braiding has allowed us to increase enrollment across the board, that it's a strategy we've used to be able to fill more slots across all of our funding sources. So that's a net positive for everyone. Yeah.
We're getting a lot more kids.
Yeah.
I have 4 quickish questions. One is sort of a information for me because my kids are older. Preschool for all, as I understand it, that's for anybody, right? There's no income limit. So the goal is eventually, I saw in here by 2030 that anybody interested can participate.
Yes, and there's priority populations that we fill with first always, and that are prioritized for those slots. And the for everyone is sort of always intended, it always has been intended to build upon the existing slots already in our county. So knowing that we already have X many Head Starts, X many Preschool for All, Preschool Promise, Preschool for All was built to try to reach that universal threshold on top of that. Does that make sense?
It does, thank you. Second, I wonder, and maybe you do this already, I wonder whether you work with the family law judges specifically in DHS, because I will say in my practice, I would hear a lot of judges recommending to either parents who are experiencing houselessness or instability and or foster parents, resource parents stepping in, they would talk about a Head Start, but I've never heard a Multnomah County judge, at least since before I left, mention apply to preschool for all. And so I wonder whether, because if there are lots of options for parents and a foster family or a resource family that perhaps is more affluent might not qualify, or I suppose they would if their kids in foster care, but you know what I mean? I'm just wondering whether you have reached out to work with DHS and family law.
Yeah, so yes is the short answer. We work really closely with DHS. So foster care is one of the heavily weighted, being in the foster care system is a heavy weight on Head Start eligibility. So that's a fast track, which I think is why often they'll recommend it. It's a free program. It's a automatic.
Can I clarify real quick? So the terminology, it's called categorical eligibility.
Thank you.
Okay.
So if a child is in a resource placement, they're automatically eligible for any of our slots, any of the 910 regardless of funding. Same if they're experiencing houselessness, or if the family is under 130% of the federal poverty level.
Okay.
If they receive SNAP, so food stamps, or TANF, those are all automatically eligible, and they can enroll at any of our sites, any open spot.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
And we have direct contact people with DHS within the county to do those cross referrals.
Okay. And then for a child who's placed in a resource home that applies for and is placed in Head Start because of this categorical, when the child returns home, does the mom, dad, parent then have to reapply? Is there any disruption, or does the kid just get to stay or move to a different location that might be closer to their family's home?
Once they're eligible for 2 years.
Okay.
So if they,
Doesn't matter where they're
so if they turn 3 by September 1st, then we call it a 2-year placement. They're eligible for 2 years and we don't have to redo eligibility. And then if they're 4 by September 1st, then the next year they would go kindergarten, but we don't look at eligibility again. Once they're enrolled, they're enrolled.
Great, okay.
Regardless. Yeah.
And then my last question, are we worried about funding? Like.
Sure. I mean, in the
this,
same way
like,
that
federal
any,
whatever you were just talking about, like the interview that's coming and like.
yeah, I mean, I think we all know, and it would be silly to give this presentation and not acknowledge that there's potential instability around federal funding in particular, right? And we do rely heavily on federal funding. So we've been working closely with our internal guidance, legal office, everybody, and all of our partners to make sure that we have mitigation plans built out if that should get compromised in any way. And that may be something you hear more about as this year evolves. We'll see.
Because the braiding really helps with that, right?
Sure. I mean, we're more stable across our program because we've rated, and we may need to lean in different ways with some of our partners to cover gaps if gaps arise. And we've been sort of, having those conversations in the background. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Ian, Sam.
I did want to, before we go to you, Ian, I just want to say one more thing. We also, we actually just drafted an MOU with DHS, so that will be coming to you all however contracts make their way to you all. But that is forthcoming, and that was something, as particularly as Rhiannon was speaking to TANF eligibility, working more closely with them for that, and then also doing some cross training and supporting some other intentional supports with families. So we work really closely with them, and we're doing more as a result of some partnership work. Go ahead, Ian.
Oh, so I couldn't help but notice, but towards the beginning of this of the presentation, you guys said that there was only about like 13 kids were in foster care, or 13 slots were taken up by foster care people. Do you guys have an opinion on why that is, or if you guys are working to like improve that demographic, or?
I mean, it changes every year, so those were like just the number that we reported out last year. I don't know where we are at currently this year.
I can share, we're right on track for about the same number at this point, but I can share a recent conversation that I had with as we're setting up the MOU, because we were asking that question as well. So we wanted, we're here as a resource. And what was shared with us is that there is DHS has a strong effort in keeping kids with their families and not removing them and returning them as quickly as possible and doing the work, the intentional work to do that. And so they're overall, there's just fewer kids that are living with resource parents right now, in all, all age ranges. And so that would apply for school age kids too.
Thank you.
We got one asked that question.
I was wondering, what is the relationship between PPS early learners and other Head Start programs like Albina Head Start, for example? And then kind of connectedly, I'm curious if there have been financial impacts from federal stuff already and whether that hits PPS early learners differently than it would hit other Head Start programs.
This one, sure. So to answer your question, we do have partnerships with our other Head Start providers in the service area. We are required to also have a service area agreement with them. So we have a 3-year agreement. It's still active with Albina Head Start, Mount Hood Head Start, and which Mount Hood serves East County, and then Neighborhood House on the west side. So we have a service area agreement with them that outlines like, this is what we're going to do, this is what you'll do, and that is actually a requirement of the state that we have that. We also have really great partnerships with them in terms of communication. So some examples I could give where we partner alongside them is in enrollment, right? So if they primarily do early Head Start, when those kids are ready to come into a preschool program, we can do some cross referrals that way. We also do a health and mental health advisory council across the county. We host, but we partner with Albina and with Mount Hood and Neighborhood House. And so we come together as a program and we look at that data countywide. We bring in some guest speakers and that happens quarterly. So that's another way that we do partner. I would say the sort of getting to the fiscal question, every program in the area has had to make some considerations around the composition of their services in regards to enrollment corrective action. So I don't think any program in Sonoma County, particularly the Head Start programs, have everyone has experienced a change in enrollment post-COVID and has had to make shifts in their service model delivery to respond to that, which has fiscal impact. An example of that is maybe there was more preschool slots before. There's been a reduction of, maybe they've reduced preschool slots and opened early Head Start. That would be an example of sort of how we're seeing it play out in those partner programs. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, we have not at this moment experienced financial impact. Could there be in the near future potentially, right? So that's where we stand right now with that. I think where we sit most impacted looking backward from today is, our people are expensive. Because we're located in a school district, which is wonderful in so many ways, like our employees are unionized and they're highly paid within the field of early learning, which is again terrific and means we can keep great people. And it means we hit against the cap of our grants on a salaries increase. So that's kind of the financial dance we continue to do right now. And that we continue to navigate and what drove some of our restructuring historically and may bring up some other sustainability questions in the coming year. Yep.
So other Head Start programs that aren't part of PPS can have different salary scale, different requirements even for teachers?
Correct. Answer that. Yeah. There is an objective to have salary parity with, I think it's by 2030, but they're moving, or 2030. Is it 2030? So, yeah, 2030. Okay. So there is a Head Start, and as part of the Head Start performance standards, there's a request to meet salary parity by 2030. Harder if there's also not funding increases. So there's a weird sort of math equation there. But there are salary requirements when it comes to license early childhood licensing and care. But no, there's not necessarily everyone's paying at the same rate.
I have two questions that are totally unrelated, and I'm going to ask them together because of time. One of them is a follow-up from Director Chase Miller's question. And I have Neighborhood House on my mind specifically, but what protocols do we have to make sure that the kids that are coming over from Head Start into our neighborhood schools. We kind of know what's coming, make sure they have the IEPs, placements, and all of that those kids need. And then unrelated, do we feel like we're ready to harness growth that could come with Preschool for All ramping up over the next several years?
Yeah, I mean, so our early learners team is also responsible for transition work in the system, as you know, and so we do a lot of work around kindergarten transition and Connect to Kindergarten. We have special events for families that are in our neighborhood programs and our partner programs to help them navigate getting into PPS kindergarten. We also have a system in place where in our pre-K programs, but also in like Neighborhood House and our partner programs, the teacher and the family before kids matriculate to kindergarten fill out kind of a document, like a form that lists a lot of important transition information about each child, really specific information, what are their hobbies, what soothes them, things like that. And then that's accessible to PPS kindergarten teams when they get there. So that's a nice transition system we've built out. And then in terms of special education, any kindergartner coming into PPS or rising kindergartner who has an IFSP and is receiving support in pre-K would go through a transition meeting with our special ed early childhood transition team and their incoming kindergarten team and would have that same process. So those are kind of several things built in.
Yeah.
And now I've forgotten your second question.
Are you ready to grow with Preschool for All?
That's the sustainability question, right? We'd love to, right? Like, and I think we'd all love to be able to bring in more families if need suggests that we could fill more slots. We'll continue to be in partnership with them and figure that out. I don't know how to answer that question better. It's always a bit of a dance because we're always doing community needs assessment as they build out other programs in our locality. We don't want to be in competition with other types of programs. Preschool for All is always intended to be a mixed delivery system that offers families, in-home care or full year care or school year care, or because it wants families to have choice.
Are we all day school year?
We are full day, but not full year. School year. We are school year.
Full day, but yeah.
So we are one option among many. So we want to grow at the rate that's appropriate for the community, but not at a rate, and at a rate that we can sustain, but not at a rate that would inadvertently create
I would
competition.
say that if there was capacity and funding, we know that we have space. We know that we have an enrollment issue. So absolutely, I think what Emily is saying is that we want to make sure that we're able to properly support the growth. But I think the team has done an outstanding job of even growing thus far, as you see, by 20%. So, and I mean, we don't have the data yet, so maybe it's a little premature to make the claim. But I will say that our kinder numbers are up, and we were expecting a projected amount that was a whole lot fewer. And so one would have to believe that as our kiddos are coming in and with us at 3 and then 4, that they would potentially stay with us at 5 or 6 as they're making connections in the classroom and being embedded in the programming and the school environment. I mean, I think it's a great way to enroll from, grassroots level.
Here, community schools.
Yes.
So, fortunately, we're at time.
Yes.
We have another board meeting get started. Terry, do you think 10 minutes is enough to set up downstairs?
Sure.
Okay.
Love that attitude.
I would like to
Plus or minus.
ask how long Terry needs.
Oh yeah, how much do you need? But let's have this training is adjourned.
Thank you.
We
Thank you,
are-
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, team.